I respect your time, so let's get right into it. Recently, I finally started to progress my gear, and after hitting a point in my gear, I realized that I was caught in a dilemma. Should I save and hoard crystals to buy cards, or should I spend the crystals to further improve my gear? So I'm here today to take a stand. Not because I fully believe in what I'm saying, but I want all of you to play devil's advocate and purposely disagree with me so that we can actually have a healthy discussion about this topic of cards versus gear. Now, before I start, I understand that cards in the early game do not have a big impact because of the percentage stats. I understand that percentage stats work best if you already have strong base stats from your gear. I understand that this will make me weaker in the early game if I were to go for cards first as opposed to improving my gear. I understand. But here is my case to go for cards. Now, here is what I noticed about following cards for about 1 month. There are two scenarios. First scenario is permanently in urgent demand, which implies that there are a lot of people who are actually pre-ordering it. Second scenario is if the cards are available, they do not follow a linear growth. The price of cards are rising exponentially as compared to the general inflation rate. So the first point I have for buying cards early is because number one, prices of cards are growing at an exponential rate as compared to prices of items used for gear progression. Hence, I feel that it makes more sense to buy the cards early. Now, let me prove it quantitatively. Let's look at the prices of popular progression items in the past 30 days and we compare it to the prices of popular cards in the last 30 days and we compare and see how much it grew. So I've listed here a bunch of progression items that are popular versus a bunch of cards that are popular as well. So let's compare the prices of 30 days ago and now, and let's see how much it grew in terms of percentage wise. So we have 6560, 6760. We have Radium 4580 to 4310, 4580, 4310. So these are the popular items that you need for progression. 30 days ago, this was the price as shown by the Exchange Center. Today, this is the price as shown in the Exchange Center as well. For basics 2, I actually took 5160 as the highest point, just to better prove my point, even though it says here it dropped all the way back down to whatever this value is, right? I assume like 4580 again. So the price of Oratorcon increased by about 3%, Radium fell by about 6%, Fracon 2 increased by 23%, Basics 2 increased by about 19%, Toughening increased by about 9%, and Blazing fell by about 9% as well. The average inflation rate or the average price increase is about 6%. So let's take a look at the popular cards and put in the prices of 30 days ago and now. So looking at the Vedon card, it increased by 57%. Wolf increased by 109%, Sasquatch increased by 87%, Social Skeleton card increased by 60%, and Lava increased by 69%, nice. Marduk increased by 191%. That is insane. The average inflation rate is about 95%. So every single card in my server increased close to double the price, 95%. Now, of course, if ROX decides to have a conscience and lower the amount of cat coins required to change for blue cards, or increase the drop rate of cards, or introduce more events that are blue cards friendly, that would definitely affect the price, but I cannot predict the future. Unless ROX decides to make me a sponsored creator and tell me things, I can only take past information that's available in-game and use that to predict future prices. As you can see, the prices of cards are growing way faster than the prices of progression items. Hence, I feel that it's better to get it early. Now, the second point is actually why. Why are the cards growing at an exponential rate as compared to gear progression items? Simple. Cards are rare, whereas progression items are basically on demand. It brings me to my 2 rules of crystal spending that I introduced in my crystal spending guide, card up at the top. Rule number 2 is, do I have any control in terms of obtaining this item? If I have no control, it will make sense for me to buy it. So let me give you a scenario. Alright, let's say ROX becomes a dead game today and I want to continue playing it. There's nobody or hardly anyone gathering anything at all, so nobody's selling any mats. There's hardly anyone AFK hunting as well, so there are no cards. So which item are you in control of? Cards or gear progression? You can essentially self-gather, self-fish, self-cook, self-smelt, self-mine any item in the game as long as you have the stamina. Nothing and nobody can stop you. You are entirely in control. If you need Orator Corn, go and mine, go and smelt it yourself. I think you can see where I'm going with this. Are you in control of getting a card? Absolutely not. You can AFK hunt at the same spot with unlimited Odin's Blessing and nobody KSing you. You can still get nothing after 1 month of 24/7 hunting simply because it's RNG. Which is why in my crystal spending guide, I would rather smelt iron myself even though it's so inefficient because all my crystals have to be spent on cards that I have no control over. Now, I have consulted many Taiwan server players. All of them told me that card prices are just going to get way worse, especially when there are lesser and lesser people playing the game. Whales and dolphins will already have gotten their cards and they are no longer farming at those spots, leaving behind a huge demand with nobody filling the gap. Now, especially if you're looking for a particular card and nobody is supplying that card, your only option is to either pre-order it yourself and lock your crystals up or go and hunt it yourself and pray to RNGesus. Your leveling will be affected, your job-based CXP will all be affected, stifling your own growth further, and the worst part is you still may not get the card that you want. So my point number 2, you have no control, or rather I have no control over getting cards or not. It's not even about the cards being expensive like point number 1. If I can solve a problem with money, it's not a problem to begin with. So the worst case scenario is not even having a supply of cards in the first place, and since everyone will be going for cards in the late game, the supply of cards will always be lower than the demand, and there's a high chance that your desired card will be forever in urgent demand. Whereas for all your progression related items, you can always spend stamina and do everything organically by yourself. You are not gated by RNG that's as bad as cards. At least you are in total control with regards to progression items, whereas you have zero control over cards due to bad RNG. Now, point number 3, our crystal quota does not increase together with inflation. So now we are all in common understanding that inflation plus growing demand plus diminishing supply would cause the prices of cards to grow exponentially. Here is my third point. Now, as a free-to-play player, every week I can get either 450k from the 10% tax bracket or 850k from the 20% tax bracket. This value does not change. I am gated by the game. This is something that the game artificially imposed on all of us. So when the price of cards grow by 5%, 10%, 15%, 95% in the past 30 days, my quota did not change. My quota did not increase by 95%. It did not change at all. The quota will never ever change and it does not grow together with the inflation. In other words, a card that I can buy today at 420k may take me more than 1 week in the future. What happens when multiple cards become in urgent demand? Should I pre-order and lock up my crystals first in one and pray? Or should I just hold on to what precious crystals I have and wait for one to suddenly appear and snap it up ASAP? A simple example, my Marduk card was in urgent demand for 2 weeks straight. One Saturday it suddenly appeared and it was at 420k. My progression was not ready for it yet, but fuck it, I just clicked. Next week it went up to 500k and it's still climbing. Now at 420k is basically my 1 week's income. At 520k is either I take 20% tax and go for it or wait for 2 weeks. Now imagine if every card you need follows the same trend, your entire progression suddenly doubles in time because our crystal quota is locked and fixed by the game to never ever grow. Now my last point is called buying a guarantee. In my opinion, every good game rewards its players with their time spent. If I spend time and effort to make crystals, I should be properly and proportionately rewarded. Now there comes a point in your progression where you're just doing 2 things. You're either refining or you're buying cards. Now the refinement system to me is a bottomless crystal black hole. The fact that there is no PT counter means it's essentially gambling. Some games have a PT counter so that after X amount of fails, you are guaranteed a pass. Or the more you fail, the higher the chance the next try will pass. Now, I mentioned that refining to me is a high risk, high reward progression. You are kind of safe until +4 because there's no downgrade chance. After which it's a 25% good outcome and 75% bad outcome, and it only gets worse. On the other hand, cards are a guaranteed progression. You spend X amount of crystals, you get Y amount of stats. No tricks, no gimmicks, no RNG. You pay for what you get. Using my current server's prices, you can either buy 1 card a week, or you can gamble 3 to 6 times of refining a week, depending on white or blue weapon. Now, how many times have you heard your guild members trying to hit that +6 refine awakening and failed and quit? There's a refining simulator on Reddit which I will link below that shows you how many times a lucky to unlucky person will need to hit +6, and it's between 24 to 56 times with an average of around 30 times. Which means that an average person will need to fail 30 times before you hit that +6. And that's on average. If you're unlucky, it can go all the way up to 56. If you're very lucky, it can go down to 24. To me, I prefer a guarantee. Now, I mentioned in my free-to-play crystal spending video, I have my own way of dealing with RNG, and that is by RNG. I fight RNG with RNG. Basically, I will set aside crystals for one refinement attempt a week and save the rest of the crystals for cards. Now, if my refinement passes, good. If it fails, I won't quit because I don't expect it to pass anyway. In other words, if for every one person that passed, there's 3 other people that's pissed off at refinement. After I'm done with upgrading my gear, let's say to 100, any events that give rewards, I will probably just pick refinement stuff and use it to gamble. Pass? Good. Fail? Whatever. My focus has and always will be cards because I absolutely detest RNG in any shape or form. Now, I understand that it's a necessary evil, but when given a choice to choose between guaranteed outcome or RNG, I pick guaranteed outcome every time, while setting aside some money for RNG. Now, it applies heavily to real life as well. You will invest most of your money into ETFs or stocks with good fundamentals while setting aside a small portion of money into either crypto or spec stocks. If it makes it big, good. If it doesn't, oh well, doesn't break the bank and impact my life negatively. Now, in conclusion, my 4 points for going for cards are as follows. Number 1, prices of cards are growing at a faster rate as compared to progression items due to overwhelming demand and lack of supply, and it will only get worse as the game goes on. Number 2, obtaining cards are not within my control, whereas I'm in total control of obtaining any and every progression item on my own. In the event where the game is dead, I can still get progression items on my own, but cards will no longer be readily available. That's the worst case scenario. Point number 3, quota for free-to-play players will always be fixed. The crystal quota does not increase together with inflation. Even when the prices of cards grow up by 100-200%, our crystal quota did not change. Point number 4, buying cards is a form of guaranteed progression, whereas other types of progression like refining and enchanting has a heavy element of RNG that's essentially a gambling system to create a crystal sink. I prefer guarantees because of my personal playstyle, because I really detest gambling. So my overall crystal spending timeline looks something like this. Number 1, unlock Upgrade Awakening to level 1 by upgrading my weapon to 60. Number 2, refinement hit +2 for weapons and accessories. Number 3, all in on cards. Number 4, set aside one refinement attempt a week. If it passes, good. If it fails, I don't quit. Number 5, go back to step number 1 and focus on the next Upgrade Awakening level. In my case, I'm going for weapon 80, accessories 20. To put my money where my mouth is, I can show you my own personal transaction history. I started buying cards from 2 weeks ago and I did not take it out to use it just for this moment. You have no idea how much it tilted my buddy when he found out that I'm not using the cards I bought. It's basically 700k worth of progression rotting my transaction history just for this moment to prove a point. Worth. Now, even this week, I also bought another card, Marine Sphere card. I'm going to take it out right now just to prove a point that I am actually actively doing what I preach. And you can see from my gear that my current progression is on its way to Upgrade Awakening level 2. Everything is refinement level 2 only. Not for the lack of trying, by the way. Every week for the past 3 weeks, I will refine my weapon once, but I have failed for 3 weeks straight already. Am I upset that it didn't pass? Yes. Am I tilted that RNGesus didn't bless me? Yes. Am I sad that I wasted crystals? Yes. You are waiting for a but, right? There's no but. Fuck you, refining system. Now, like I said at the beginning of the video, if the C version of ROX can decrease Shadow Weapon Awakening quest requirements, there's nothing stopping them from actually increasing card rates or introducing more events to help us free-to-play players. It didn't happen in the Taiwan server, but if it happens in our C server, do come back to this video and laugh at my stupid ass. Heck, I will even make a video to laugh at myself, but if that is what it takes for C server to grow a conscience, I will gladly 牺牲小我完成大我, sacrifice small me for the betterment of the collective us. I am purposefully taking a stand for buying cards so that everyone else can play devil's advocate, which means to disagree with me and have a healthy discussion about this and let newer players decide on their own. I will pin the top comment that's able to best disagree with me and take a stand to go for progression items instead. Now, like the video if it helped you make a decision with your progression. Whether you disagree or not doesn't matter. At least it gave you more conviction to go down whatever path you choose to take. Subscribe and turn on notifications if you like videos that give you value and help you stay ahead of the free-to-play curve. As always, outplay, not outpay. It's Saturday. Yay! Goodbye.